So the answer to the question is yes. Yes, it can get worse. That's the answer to the question, folks. We threw it out there last week, and I don't know that any of us truly believed that it could happen. Those of us around football or played football knew it was possible, yes, but kind of dismissed going out to Stanford and dropping that ball game in inexplicable fashion. But we all saw it, and now come the consequences, possibly. And that's what we're going to serve up to James and to George here for the next hour on Florida State Seminoles Live. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. We appreciate your contributions as well, not just financially. Please like the video, subscribe here at the Voice of College Football, of course. James Coleman, Big Game James from Den Media Group, and the Renegade Report. And of course, George, that's his baby, the Renegade Report, right here on YouTube. Guys, how you doing? Considering?
Hey, stressed and highly flavored is what I always say. But yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Hey, life goes on. Jen and Tiny Hat, they've got a reason to talk about Florida State every Monday again now. So looking at the silver linings, they're having fun. They had a good episode last night. So happy about that. And here we are.
It always seems to be in those kind of settings where a team, and more so a coach who seems to be on his last leg, kind of goes to die. Odd kickoff time, partially empty stadium, not a lot of energy, opponent that's not necessarily you're going to get up for, just that kind of atmosphere. And then it's usually low scoring, or just kind of gets dragged down into the mud and is one of those kind of football games. And obviously, the longer it drags on, the more the underdog feels good about it. And the Stanford team, it's not like we're talking about the worst team in existence ever. They have won 3 football games this year. So, yeah, we'll start with you, James, in regards to how surprised were you and how much of it's maybe not the talent being what would be an 8-4 ACC team. That was our prediction to start the season. How much of it is this team's really not coached that well, and how much of it is maybe some players are checking out?
I think it's a lot of guys just are tuning out, not necessarily checking out. Now, I want to preface this. I can't relate to this energy, and I have no idea why people are acting in the manner in which they're acting. But I think what happened is Mike and them did a great job of getting the guys amped up. And I'll give a personal example. 20 years ago, the 2005 season, we played the University of Miami on Labor Day. And Labor Day, actually, yeah. We had lost to Miami, I believe, 5 times in a row. All close games. Our entire offseason was beat Miami, beat Miami, beat Miami, beat Miami, beat Miami. We beat Miami. Didn't know what to do after that. The only thing we worked toward was beating Miami, but we eventually had to snap out of it and get to it. It was like 10-7 against Citadel, and then we ended up winning like 65-7 or something like that. It was just some things that were uncharacteristic for a very talented team. But it was one thing that we had was internal leadership and guys who were driven by not just the logo, but making sure we could feed our families one day. Everybody wanted to go to the NFL. So we knew in order to go to the NFL, we had to do these different things, regardless of if we thought Jeff Bowden was a good offensive coordinator or not. Regardless of if we thought we were being coached well or not, those guys were making 6 figures. We weren't. And the goal was to be able to make 6 figures or become multimillionaires in the National Football League. So what I think is happening is guys bought in early, kind of lost what it was, and are smelling themselves a little bit. And now they're getting themselves into holes that they can't dig themselves out of. And the only way they're going to be able to do is look to the person to the left, look to the person to the right, and the leadership, and be able to get themselves out of that. But the defense and the offense aren't playing complementary ball. And these guys are acting in manners that are unbecoming of potential professionals. So they've got that's about the only explanation. But when we talked about it, you know, we've seen it. We've seen 2-10. It could get worse. And these guys have to look inside and determine what they want to be able to do. And do they want to be considered, again, maybe not the worst team in FSU history, but the second worst team in FSU history, or do they want to go out and finish this season? I have questions of them even being bowl eligible at this point. And it's not a lack of talent. Look at the roster. I'll use Edwin Joseph as an example. Number 3, the young man who I'm highly disappointed in the manner in which he conducted himself, right? Edwin Joseph had offers from the University of Florida, Miami, Penn State, numerous people. Everybody wanted him. Most of the guys on this roster, everybody wanted at a time. It's about how you orchestrate the meal. And I don't think they're doing a great job of orchestrating the meal in the manner in which is proper for them. And that comes down to recruiting, personality types, and the people who need to be there, as well as tuning them out. Because I know this, to not hear anything, and forget the firing of Mike Norvell for a second, to hear that Edwin Joseph is still on this team. And this is no disrespect to the young man. I don't know him, and I wish him the best. But I do know if you would have acted like that, the axe would have been had. If not, you would have been you might have been left in San Francisco and not have been able to get back to Tallahassee, let alone come back to Tallahassee and not have a suspension or anything else looming.
Yeah, that's another microcosm kind of the Norvell era and what's went wrong the past couple of years. It's like, not only was he not off the team or suspended or anything like that, he was right back in there. And heck, you might not have a chance to win it at the end without him, but that culture is so far gone of accountability now that it's just tough. You know, to what you were saying, Mark. Yeah, the Florida State fans could see it happening just because we've been down this road before. Just play down to the level of whoever your competition is and crap the bed at the end of the day. I mean, the offense, it looks like the defense on its face. If you just look at the box score or the final score, it's like, all right, well, the defense played pretty good. The offense didn't do anything. Well, they had 450-something yards, were moving the ball up and down the field, but situationally in every big moment, false start, offsides, and just over and over and over again. You just couldn't ever get anything going. It's just to the point, and I think we talked about it last week. 6-6, you're a dead man walking, and it's going to be tough for him to get there. Anything less than 6-6, we're going to have these conversations every week. And to lose to Stanford, the thing I look about, and I look at the rest of the games on the schedule, you're going to lose to Stanford if you don't have some kind of miraculous buy-in. You're going to lose to Clemson. You're going to lose to Florida. You might lose to NC State. You could win four games, 5, easily. So it's a tough place to be for Mike. Michael Alford came out with the statement. He freezes over there begging for an endorsement from his AD. Mike got his right off the bat. The fan base obviously erupted, but what are they going to say? That's not legally binding in court if he goes on to lose the next 2 games and the boosters get fired up. But you hate it for Mike, but the message it's on deaf ears. There's a joke on Twitter about Respond. Apparently the players are, making fun of Respond in the locker room post game. I don't know, but it's tough to watch.
Let's go down that path. So I saw the same article about making fun of Norvell using the term respond too much. There's all sorts of great coaches that have used all sorts of things that could be made fun of over and over and over, but they had 10-2 records or national championships or whatever next to their name, so they wouldn't get made fun of. So when you give respect to somebody, so I'll start with you, James, because I'm sure there have been people that you've encountered that had nothing on their name that would demand respect. Maybe they were picking up trash along the street. Maybe they, didn't have anything about them externally that would draw you to say, but you met the person and were like, you had great respect for them because they were intelligent. They just demanded respect. They were just had that about them. Then there are other people. If you said, okay, you're going to meet this senator, this bank president, you may like just walk in there with respect already, and then they would have to disprove the respect. So you got Mike Norvell, and obviously, if the record next to his name was 6-1 or 7-0, then he would probably get respect in the locker room. And I don't know how much lack of respect he gets, but and in a sense, I'm asking the right guy. In a sense, I'm asking the wrong guy, because again, you can't relate to a guy that's leading the locker room because you played for arguably the greatest of all time. So I don't know if you've run across situations where the respect was in question.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I like doing is, is telling stories and reminding people, maybe of a time in the past where people haven't like really thought about stuff. So like everybody remembers the great moments of Bobby Bowden, right? And trust me, the old man had tons of great moments, right? But there was a time we played Notre Dame where Bobby almost did lose the locker room playing Chris Ricks over Adrian McPherson. And people really forget this, because it's convenient to forget these things. And Bobby did a great job of dictating and making sure that people kind of kept calm and kept the main thing, right? So there was that. Also, I think one of the best things about today and what makes and why football and sports will always be high on everybody's list is because of the entertainment value. And one of the entertainment value things is we know so much about what happens, but know absolutely nothing of the nuance in what happens. So we picked on Bobby all the time. Bobby Bowden every every Thursday night when we traveled. He gave the same speech for 4 years. And I'm assuming he did it 4 years before me, and he did it 4 years after me. You're around people enough to where it's like a family thing. Like if you think about it, like you probably had a dad, like Mark, your dad or your mom or somebody who disciplined. Every time they got mad, they did something. And when you walked away, like you mock them a little bit. It's a thing. So laughing and joking and talking about climbing, I would have probably been one of the same guys. Oh, here we go. We gotta hear about this climb shit again. So like you'll hear something like that. Jeff Bowden, when we played Florida, we got my junior year, we should have won. And everybody complained. And Jeff Bowden brought us all in and we had a team meeting. And Jeff said, if I had to do it all again, I wouldn't change a thing. And all of us was like, really? Not one thing? We lost. So like our running joke for the bowl game and for all of the 25 season, if I had to do it all again, I wouldn't change a thing. It's a half joking thing. But I do think that I don't think that's how he lost the respect. I think when people bump by you and arguments happen, but like the way that Edwin Joseph came by him, that was a complete lack of respect, in my opinion. I think the TMZ nature of FSU's beat is to make everything seem so salacious and it's out of control. And it's like that. And it fuels the fan base because we want something to happen. It's just like Mike Norvell's. Mark, you worked in corporate America. I'm sure your bosses at ESPN said a lot of things that you did not like sometimes. You guys might even have disagreements. But if you would have punched your boss, what would have probably happened to you?
Well, I would have got hauled down to HR and then been
fired with cause. Fired with cause. It sounds really good in my cheese mode. Mike went to Tony White, and Tony White said, "Bam!" What did the 5 fingers say to the face? And it sounds great, and I would have done this, but knowing good and well, your boss doesn't like you listening to our YouTube podcast in the office, and you shut up and you turn the volume down, and you act like you're supposed to act. We have to act like there's decorum and professionalism, even in a violent gladiator sport. It doesn't work like that. And I know one of my good dear friends, Rick Ballou, is like, ask the questions like this. And I'm like, want to tell him, shut up. I know your boss, Steve Griffin, has pissed you off numerous times, and you didn't punch Steve, old ass. So I know I know you know how this thing is supposed to go. And Tony White is a good guy. Nothing about Tony White strikes me as a scary individual, and that terrifies me as a defensive coordinator. You know who I'm still terrified of to this day, Mark? Mickey Andrews. Mickey Andrews still gives me a little bit of pause, and Kevin Steele still gives me a little bit of pause when I see them. It's the respect and the badassery that they embody. It's not just a kind of thing, but these guys just attitude reflects leadership, and I think the message is stale, and I think it's as it was told to me. It's imminent. It's not immediate.
Like I said, man, I agree. It's true. You know, a lot of things are overblown of what you hear and stuff. I think, you know, to your point, the bumping by, all that stuff. The results on the field is the final. You know, it's like we can get into, oh, well, this guy missed a block, this guy had a penalty. At the end of the day, the team kind of just falls apart. And to your point, reflects the leadership that it's getting at a certain point. There's only so many chances you can get, ways we can break this down. Like we saw the potential of the talent against Alabama. And then we saw, you know, what you could potentially do to lose to Virginia. Miami snowballed, Pitt snowballs, and now here you are losing to Stanford. And it's just like, I feel bad for Tommy Castellanos. Shout out to him because he's out there putting his heart and soul. And, you know, the reason that FSU's still been in all these games, whether he's had the best game here, the best game there, he puts his body on the line. I wish they'd do something with the slide rule because a lot of times the defenders can't help it. I think this one was pretty egregious where he hit him, but it's hard to say. It's easy to say that when you see it in slow motion, but really nasty hit on him. Thank God we have a bye week. But yeah, it's hard to put your finger on it. I think I said when the first show after Alabama, like, wow, how awesome was it to see, Florida State be on the good side of the better coach team, no penalties, linebackers hitting all the gaps, and it was like that was the touch of death. Ever since then, it's kind of been back to the old way of 24. So yeah. I don't even know where we were about as far as questions or what the next move is, but yeah, I'm at a loss for words.
What kind of intrigues me, among other things, in these kind of situations with trying to determine should a coach be fired? Are they out the door? Whether we would have the call and would make that decision, or think it should be done, or are guessing, are they going to make the call? Okay, if Gavin Sawchuk gets into the end zone, I have no idea if that's going to impact the decision that Florida State makes. But obviously there's a different record on the board. Maybe the team feels differently coming back from Palo Alto, puts in a little harder work. Who knows what the impact on the season? Nobody will ever know that. Whether that turns into, I'm not going to blow it out of proportion like they're going to go on a run of 45-0 wins against everyone, but they put together a 8-4 season after they beat Stanford versus they are where they are, and maybe it spirals out of control and they go 5-7. And obviously Mike Norvell's no different of a coach if Gavin Sawchuk is able to, inch a couple inches closer and into the end zone versus what he did. And we'll never know. It was a mass of humanity, whether he made it or not. That has nothing to do with how good Mike Norvell is as a head coach, but that's on his record. That much is the difference between a win and a loss in this case, obviously. In the Virginia game, shoot, you could throw that out there too. Deuce Robinson trying to haul in a football that he's juggled for 12 yards.
I want to hear James's take on this, but real quick, as far as like the decision of whether to get rid of Mike, or if he goes undefeated 8-4, yeah, he's probably going to be here next year, whether he's a lame duck or not. He's going to get a shot. The problem with keeping him is just the solution with Mike. If you keep Mike and you go forward to get Florida State back to the standard that James always talks about, that's 2 or 3 years down the road. That's going to be an investment. Like, if you don't make this move, you're stuck with Mike or just starting all the way back over. So that's the biggest thing to me is you better pick who you're going to be going with for the next couple of years. Who's your partner going to be? And just the propensity for these he's got what, four-game losing streaks? And FSU would only have one since the 70s, like in 75 or something like that. So it's just, I'm not going to root against Florida State. If they go 8-4, I'd be pumped. But I think at this point, the way you get there matters. In the 4-game losing streak, 9 in a row in the ACC, I don't think there's any chance he wins out. Like, personally, we'll see. But even if he did, I would hope they would pull the trigger and get that ball rolling. Because, again, the transfer is going to one time only and one time a year. Kids only get to transfer once in their college career. It's got to be so easy to completely fix these things or put a Band-Aid on. High school recruiting has to come around, and the classes got to get stacked for Florida State to ever get back up there.
Going back to your initial question, Mark, if I want to make sure I heard you correctly, you said if Mike Norvell wins the Virginia game, is this different? And
yeah, if Deuce Robinson makes a catch in the end zone clean, and if Gavin Sawchuk lands significantly in the end zone, they're 5-2 right now. They're not 3-4. And Mike Norvell is no different of a man or a coach. He is the same exact guy doing the same exact job. I'm just bringing to light the fragility of decisions in sports to keep coaches or to let them go.
Yeah, in today's climate, it's a what have you done for me lately? It's becoming more pro and more NFL. But I say the teams that are going to win consistently in this climate are going to be the ones with more consistency. But you have to find the coach in which you believe is going to be able to take you to the next level in terms of crafting their rosters and as in terms of being able to recruit, which is the lifeblood of college football. There's not a bigger Mike Norvell fan than me. As a man, I've seen the tweets. I hate those tweets as well because they're all true, but it has nothing to do with anything. He is a great man. They say he's a Christian. Okay, but he's good. He is a good husband, and he's a good father. None of those have anything to do with the X's and O's and what goes down on the football field. He is not. If he was a pastor, all of those things would be phenomenal. He is paid to win football games. He is paid to be a leader of men. And right now, he's not doing. And he's paid. And he's a guy who says, when I first met him, and I can only hold him to what he said to me personally in interviews. I don't listen to everybody else. I listen to what people tell me, and I hold them to what they told me. He understands what the standard is. And the standard is to be able to compete for championships. Now, we can make adjustments to the standard. We can make adjustments to our expectations, to where it gets us to the standard. And we've done that. We did that with 3 and 6. We did that with 5 and 7. And then he gave you 10 and 3, and he gave you 13 and 1 to go back down to 2 and 10. And a lot of that has to do with missteps in which he's made in recruiting in the transfer portal. That's a you choice. And there has to be an ownership that comes with that. And unfortunately, in this game, it's results oriented. And he's not getting the results. Bobby was a phenomenal man. They got rid of Bobby. And that's just the reality of the situation. So I'll go back and say, like, even if he won, it's like kind of what Penn State did with James Franklin. Is this our ceiling? Can we get better? What do we know? What will make it improve? We keep hearing the same things over and over again. And while he's not making the same mistake twice, he's making a new mistake every time. So mistakes are made regardless. And I want it to be successful, but outside of blowing out Wake Forest, blowing out Clemson, like really getting these games to connect. He's on far and few in between. And some of the worst things that could possibly happen to you when the house is on fire is the people inside of the house or affiliations with the house throwing gasoline on that fire. You've got former guys who were coached by you coming out and giving huge indictments on what your character is. Now, personally, I think some of it's BS, and I think it's ill-advised, and I think it's borderline, it's pacified pussy behavior. But they're doing it, and that hurts your image in terms of recruits. You never want a former player, or let alone a former player that was coached by you, saying these things. That's one thing. Number two, you got guys, again, like we talked about, on-field performance and how their attitudes are on. And then just what's being said, it reeks of guys that don't understand what it's like to play football in the South. Or at least in the state of Florida, one of the biggest places. And I'm saddened for it. I'm sad for them. But when you get paid a lot of money to win football games, that's the case. And I don't see a scenario where Mike survives this season based on how the 4 games went. And I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a miracle. Who knows? It would be some kind of miracle run to where maybe he could get the buy-in and get some things rolling. But yeah, based off what we've seen, to be able to win all those games is going to be really tough.
So there would be certain off seasons. I'm sorry, George, if you had anything else there.
No, you're good.
But there would be certain off seasons where Florida State would definitely be the best job available. We're coming up on a situation where this might be the most unprecedented line of head coaching opportunities. And I'm not saying that Florida State's not the best, but it could be argued it's second or third. It's somewhere in that range. But Penn State, Florida, maybe Auburn, maybe Wisconsin, and then some others, Virginia Tech and Oklahoma State, et cetera, and maybe some others, but certainly the ones I just mentioned, and maybe I'm missing a couple. So obviously at a place like, if this was Wake Forest, there might be 50 head coaches out there that meet their standard of what they're looking for. But at a place like Florida State, obviously that list is a lot shorter of what Florida State would accept, but also what the fan base and the boosters would accept as being a good enough name, not just a good enough coach. So that obviously hurts them to a certain extent, or possibly could hurt them. I'm not going to say it for sure, in terms of getting the guy that they would want. Possibly.
I think, well, a couple of them schools have done this numerous times and it hasn't worked. And I'll ask this question to the fan base that's listening and to anybody who's in the comments, because I genuinely don't have an answer for it, and I would like an answer for it. I don't think Mike lasts past Wake Forest, if I'm being honest. But I do want to know, for people who are screaming fire him right now, can you tell me an instance where it's helped the school when they did it? I'm trying to figure out the school that fired a coach in the middle of the season where it actually got them right back in the championship hunt. I know our rivals to the south of 75 have done this 3 times. And neither time guess what? All 3 times this was supposed to be the hire that they liked, and they wind up doing the thing again. They did it with Jim McElwain. When they got Jim, they did Jim McElwain. They did it to Dan Mullen, and now they're doing it again to Billy Napier. And every year is supposed to be one of the hottest jobs, and every year they don't get the guy that they wanted; they get the guy that accepted it. I can promise you, Jim McElwain wasn't that great of a hire. Dan Mullen was the girl that didn't. They all wanted. They wanted Scott Frost. But Dan Mullen was the guy who didn't say no after the third time.
Or
And
Chip
then,
Kelly, right? He was in
then
there
when
too.
a Chip Kelly was
Yeah.
in that mix as well. And Billy Napier, you could argue that maybe he was a high hand, but he came from a G5, so he wasn't the sexiest thing in the world. I can promise you this, the other thing with Mike Norvell, they did not fire Willie Taggart in the middle of the season to hire a G5 coach that they allowed to coach in his conference championship game. Things don't move fast. The only guys they're going to go after right now, let's just use some of the names that are hot. Lane Kiffin. And you fired a coach, it'll be an unprecedented move for a coach who's probably on a trajectory to go to a college football playoff to leave his team in the middle of the year to come to you. So it's not helping your recruiting because you still won't know until after the conference championship games at the earliest. You don't. Now, here's where Florida State can do what they need to do. They need to clean up some of the back office stuff, and they need to put more money into the program in that manner. And if you're trying to get the best guy is not coming until their season is done. Whether it be a coordinator, whether it be a head, unless it's a coordinator. Coordinators can leave without head coaches being there. And that's something that's different. But like, I think the best, if you're going to do that, that means you're going all in for James Franklin. And I have no problem with going all in for James Franklin. You know what James Franklin can do? James Franklin can audit your program, his program in real life. Something that Mike kind of got an opportunity to do with them going to a bowl game under tag. But he can look at this and say, okay, I like this. I like that. I like that. You can create your off-field staff so that you can go recruit. You only have 10 coaches recruiting at any given time. Now, if Mike's not going to be your guy, you eliminate that. So now you have your head coach can go handle your recruiting. You can go do things. You can go handle stuff. But that's why I like what Mike Offer's statement was. Mike Offer's statement wasn't saying that we're not firing Mike Norvell. His statement was, we're going to do our due diligence, basically. And I'm cool with that. And it's time to. It unfortunately looks like it's time. Now, again, if he goes out here, they beat Wake Forest 45-10, like they have every ability to do, then you might kick the can down the road. But there's only one way in winning, and they just haven't done it. And it's but I do know this, just firing a guy and nobody, we've seen what happens when nobody recruits. We saw it with Jimbo. Jimbo didn't recruit anybody toward the end of his tenure at Florida State, and it probably left us. We can all probably look back and say that that's probably when everything really started going downhill, and that void hasn't been filled since. So,
yeah, your take brings it. Your answer to Mark's question and your take, brought this back up in my head. I was thinking about this yesterday when I was watching the roast, and I'm looking through my notes as I'm producing the show. And okay, the names that are out there: James Franklin, Lane Kiffin. Everybody seems, Raleigh, in this day and age, to be enamored with the guy who's done it at the P5 level, get away from G5s, this and that. But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about all the hottest and best coaches in the country right now. And they're all on their first job from a coordinator, are they not? Kirby at Georgia, from coordinator at Bama to head coach. Dillingham, a young coach who's on fire. Coordinator at Oregon to head coach. His coach at Oregon, coordinator to coach. Ryan Day at Ohio State, coordinator to coach. They did it all these years ago with Jimbo, coordinator to coach. They did it with Dabo from a position coach to head coach. So as much as I want the fancy name, I've never believed people want to talk like Lane and Franklin recruit. I don't see it. Everybody says, oh, well, we'll see. It's different when you got the logo, and it is. But that's the same thing we're going to say about anybody. I feel like you're going to recruit no matter where you are. I feel like they're closer to Norvell than anybody else Florida State's had at coach. So I'm just curious, are there any coordinators? Yeah, I've heard Glenn Schumann. I don't know about all that. But are there any coordinators out there you see they're tearing it up? Like, because I think they might need to go that way. Just looking at the odds and playing the numbers out there.
You talking about a coaching tree though? Like, whose coaching tree did those guys come from under?
Oh yeah,
so there isn't another Saban out there right now.
That's true.
And Jimbo, why I don't really want Jimbo back is when you write down Jimbo's tenure at Florida State on paper, and you read it out loud, there are 3 years where it looks really, really good. That's it. Who was the coordinator that got Bobby fired? Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher was about to be fired if he didn't win that 2012 ACC championship. We were ready to get rid of him. He won it in 13.
He almost got Ron Zook.
Playoff in 14. And I'll give him 15. 16 and 17 were subpar years at best. He was out of here at 17. Most of Jimbo's career is not good. We just remember that. You know who he is? He's my guy my other guy from LSU. He's Ed Orgeron. You could barely understand him too. Dan Lanning again got a chance to learn up under some of the best minds. Kirby was a longtime assistant under Saban and literally replicated Saban's blueprint in Alabama at Georgia with an AD who hired him, who I do a show with that comes out every Thursday. He's the president of the Gator Bowl, Greg McGarity, who was willing to do whatever it needed to do to put the infrastructure behind Kirby in order to do that. Oregon infrastructure that's been there since I have been playing. They did it differently to get everybody to come out there by making the gear fly, by making sure that the guys had all of the coolest gadgets and doing everything. They have the infrastructure behind it. They're also on the West Coast. They benefit from USC being down. USC is the creme de la creme on the West Coast when they're balling. They're not balling right now. But I'm not saying he's not a good coach, but he's there. Also, think about it like this. Oregon had Taggart. Taggart got snatched away. Oregon had Mario Cristobal. Miami snatched him away. We also know that Oregon can't keep a coach if somebody else wants them. And they have more money than Walmart with Phil Knight behind them. And just on and on, there are circumstances. So if you can find a coordinator who comes from a head coach who's tenured and that's winning, those guys do traditionally play better. But I'm not even at all sold on those guys. James Franklin, I'll say this. James Franklin came from Vanderbilt. He won at Vanderbilt. In the last 5 years, there's only 3 coaches, I believe, that have won more games than James Franklin. And you named a couple of them. Like, he's won. He was one play. He was one game away from the college football playoff, regardless of the manner in which he got there. You could say he had the easiest road, but the teams he played didn't beat him. He beat Boise State. He beat SMU, and it was SMU he beat, and he had the opportunity, and then he lost to Notre Dame
on the last play of the game.
On the last play of the game. So I mean, he recruits Florida well with Sider. He gives you everything that you want, but he's in Pennsylvania. So imagine, and his defenses put people in the NFL. They're fast, they're physical. Imagine you bring him here with a good offensive coordinator and a fertile recruiting ground. And he can get the mid, and now he can go. Now, if he could do in Florida what he did in the Midwest, which was he came down to Florida to get a skill player or two every now and then. Imagine if he go get one of them cornbread, Amish butter eating boys from the Midwest to come down here and play offensive line with a plethora of skill players that he can just go pick from. You might see a different side. And his biggest weakness is kind of like, I see people talk about him, but Bobby Bowden's biggest weakness is that he went up against the greatest talent of greatest Miami run that they ever had. If Bobby didn't have to play Miami every year, how many national championships would he have won? The biggest beef against him, he can't beat Ohio State. And Ohio State's having probably the greatest run that Ohio State's had. So it's kind of like there's some things that kind of go in. And I also like Frank. I like the guys he recruits that come in and he develops them. And I like the talent that he has. So All that being said, I know something different has to happen. And because the guys aren't playing. And what I will say is this: firing him, not firing him, keeping him here, you don't get a higher recruiting class by losing more games. It's not the NFL. NFL makes sense to fire your coach whenever you want to. Tank for the number 1 overall pick. But it doesn't work like that in recruiting unless you have guys that could come in and stabilize your program. And that's the real reason why I like Franklin. I don't see the other guys being able to come in, put together a coaching roster, put together an elite staff to recruit, and make sure you have a recruiting class that's as good as it needs to be, especially in the transfer portal age.
We appreciate you being here. Typically on a Tuesday night, you got to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. And keep in mind that there's an easy way to support the channel, whether it's this one or any at the Voice of College Football. So I'm not telling you to shop at Amazon, but most of you do. So when you do, please use the link that we provide. It's in the description section of this video and every video. Use the Amazon link. It's the same shopping experience. They got $3 trillion there. I saw that figure a couple months ago. $3 trillion at Amazon. So you spend $100 at Amazon. Why send them $100? Send them 95. Send 5 to the Voice of College Football. We can get on that program. That'd be good. George, what's going on at the Renegade Report?
Well, just like I mentioned earlier, Jen and Tiny Hat had another roast last night. A really good one. You can go check that out. We got a bye week, so probably not too much going on unless something happens, unless some crazy report comes out or FSU makes a move, which is unlikely, as James talked about. You probably won't see something until at least after the Wake Forest game if that goes south. So just check out the roast every Monday at 8:15 and stay tuned. Catch us here every Tuesday. We usually Tuesday, but most weeks.
That is a pretty interesting list you came up with, George, and I'll add one on there. Lincoln Riley, of course, won big at Oklahoma, 55-10, and he was never a head coach either.
Yeah, like Rhett Lashley, was he straight from coordinator at Miami to SMU? I mean, you go down the list, and I think of all the best ones, Kalen DeBoer is the only name that really comes to mind of somebody who did it at a high level and left. I'm sure there's a couple like Cristobal was a head coach before, but he came straight from being a coordinator to Miami too. So.
He was a failure at FIU.
Fired by FIU, yeah.
But I think again, it just all depends on what your level of expectations are. Lincoln Riley was good at Oklahoma, then he left to go to USC, and he's been a shell of what he was. I think the problem is when you get these. Also, look at the jobs.
Marcus Freeman
was there.
Yeah, that's a little different.
Marcus Freeman was like Jimbo. Like you're there, and then you get graduated into that position. I like that.
And Ryan Day, yeah.
And Ryan, yeah, I like those kind of moves, but because you got a chance to learn, and really at that point, you just if you can keep the main thing, you've got something rocking and rolling. Be honest with you, I don't care who does it. I just want to win. But I don't think I want an offensive guy. I want a defensive guy. Because that's the other, I mean, Rhett Lashley is good. He's at SMU. The level of expectations at SMU pale in comparison.
That was pretty far down the list.
No. But you raised a good point. I don't know what Oklahoma's fan base is like because I don't really see them like that on social media because I'm not in Oklahoma.
Oh, shit. Well, look who Oklahoma's got now. Straight from a coordinator. They're doing pretty good right now.
Yeah.
There's another one.
Didn't think about that. Yeah. That's food for thought. I just started running down the list in my head, and guys who are head coaches that have been hired that are doing stuff right now, not many. And, James Franklin is one of those names. People are going to want Clark Lee. That's going to be another name because he, has kind of took what James did and done better after the Derek Mason fiasco. So we'll see.
But, I like the coach who's the coach at Vanderbilt now, too? I think the other thing, too, is like proof of concept. It's easier to sell that unless you're a guy. But I do want a defensive-minded guy because you could get an offensive guy and do that. I'm not a big Schumann fan right now. I don't want. They will be exciting, but if you don't have a guy like the reason why I like defensive guys is obviously they put defense first. And one thing that Mike Norvell hasn't been able to accomplish yet is playing complementary football. I'm not a Tony White fan right now because they don't look disciplined. They don't look disciplined, and they don't look prepared. But I do know this: it's hard to make adjustments when your offense goes 3 and out consistently. And that was my my apologies for Fuller. Like, I said, hey, it's hard to make adjustments when you were just on the field for 8 minutes and your offense goes 3 and out. But defensive-minded coaches are going to set their defense, and they're going to put an offense in place that allows them to set their defense. Typically, offensive coaches, I don't think they know how to do that, in my opinion. Even with Jimbo wanted the 4-2-5 defense, and he only had one coach that knew how to run it properly. And, excuse me, I apologize. He had 2 coaches that knew how to run it properly. The one guy he brought in that got it set up and really was rocking and rolling and is the head coach of Kentucky now. And the guy who got all the credit for it, I don't know what he's doing. Is he still in the NFL? I forgot what Pruitt is doing now. I know Pruitt can't. I know he's got show clause. But I know Pruitt took a lot of credit for that 1 year he did. Like, those guys weren't truly recruited and put in proper positions by my guy Mark Stoops. But you got good guys. I think USF's coach is really, really good. You're seeing what he's doing with lesser talent. You're seeing what the guys are doing with lesser talent. But what you need is a motivator of men. And most defensive coaches are the guys who are motivators of men. And if we don't have a guy that can get these young men to tap into their heart and be able to get the most out of them, then we're wasting our time and we're spinning our wheels. And we'll be right back here in another 4 to 5 years talking about it's time for another coaching change.
Jeremy Pruitt does not have a coaching position next to his Wikipedia page. And since he did 1 year as an assistant after he got fired at Tennessee 2020, 1 year with the New York Giants as a special assistant in 21. He's got no coaching jobs next to his name since then.
Props to him. Got his feet kicked up somewhere, maybe. Maybe he's found him a new venture. I'm sure that's probably tough to go from head coach to back to the bottom around again. He may not have been up for that. Who knows?
Den Media Group, James, what's going on there?
Man, just enjoying the love. Mark, adversity pays, and sensationalism sells. We had through all of the channels, we had 1,200 people watching on Monday's show. They were ready to get some news about a firing, and I had to tell them it's not gonna happen. So quit asking. Imminent, not immediate is the message, and at the same time, we're preaching support the team. We are going to be hyping it up next. Probably on Friday. We got baseball season starts in Tallahassee. I don't know if you know that we're a baseball school, Mark. The Garden and Gold baseball game will be on Halloween. We have tickets we'll be giving away. We've got nice tickets to the Wake Forest game. So if you don't want to go to Florida State games and you're mad and you're going to boycott and you're going to do all this, give me the tickets. There are plenty of kids that would love nothing to do than spend their Saturday afternoon watching bad football. It gives them you have to remember, at the end of the day, this is entertainment. And there are people who are dealing with some real things and would love nothing more than a reprieve from the complexities of life. And they go from there. But we're doing those things. We're giving our ticket giveaways. We're doing our cool stuff. I'm probably working on this Friday or Saturday, since we don't have a game. We're going to do a FSU town hall meeting roundtable with some of the top guys in Nole history, where we're just going to talk about some good, positive things and what we feel the program needs to do, what we're here to do to help the program. And, we'll just chop it up a little bit. You guys can ask your questions and a lot of the different things. I'll probably have some controversial guys on there, like my good teammate Antonio Cromartie. We'll have Peter Warwick. We'll have some of these guys that will come in and stop by, and we'll just chop it up. And you guys can ask your questions about what it is that you want to see Florida State do and what direction they want to go in. But that's kind of what we're doing. We would love to get to 7,000 subscribers. Once we get to 7,000 subs, we'll give away $500 on Big Games BS, as well as $200 to a lucky member during that. In each increment of 1,000, we do something like that. So we're giving away the tickets. We're giving away free stuff. We'll give away Jags tickets as well. And I'm just happy. I got, like I said, people dealing with, I don't know if you realize this or not, Mark. I was in New Jersey last week at my grandmother's, dealing with my grandmother's funeral. And, like people ask me these things, why aren't you upset? Real life is happening. There's some bigger things in life than Florida State losing. It doesn't affect my pockets at all, but it does affect my entertainment. I want them to win. I need them to win. And but I want those young men to win with pride and understand the standard in which the logo in which they're representing.
Cromartie and Warwick, that's a serious panel right there. And we also want people to be aware of the Renegade Report again right here on YouTube. And you can follow George and company on X. We pick up a super chat walking out the door. We appreciate Falconer TRX. So we get a couple bucks from South Florida, from Miami. So that's how it works on the Florida State channel, folks. We get some Miami green coming in here. So Falconer TRX, appreciate you being here. James, thanks for making this happen. George, thank you as well. You guys, we don't have a show without you, and obviously didn't for a while, but I'm glad I got you guys back even during some downtime. So thanks for being here, everybody. Check out James and check out George this week talking FSU football, and we'll make it on back next week.